Hello and welcome to IdeaGen TV's 17 Days of Sustainability. Today we are honored and excited to welcome Nancy Youssef, the Chief Corporate Development Officer for Soles4Souls. Nancy, welcome.
Thank you. So happy to be here. We're so grateful to be on this event and part of the 17 days.
It is so great to have you, and we're honored to have you and Soles4Souls join us. And we're even more excited for the fantastic power chat that you have planned for us for this event. So with that, Nancy, I will turn it over to you, and we're really excited to hear what you and your colleague has to say.
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here. Myself and Connie from ThirdLove, one of our partner brands. Soles4Souls is a not-for-profit that helps people in need. We create opportunity through shoes and clothing, and we create various opportunities. And Connie and I are going to have a little chat today and sort of talk to people about what's happening around the globe and how collectively we're helping with some of these SDGs. Connie, would you please introduce yourself and your role and what ThirdLove does?
Absolutely. Thank you, Nancy. So thrilled to be here. So hi, I'm Connie. I'm the head of operations and logistics at ThirdLove. ThirdLove is a brand that is building bras and underwear for everybody. So we fundamentally believe that we want every woman to feel comfortable in her body, and her bra and her underwear shouldn't have to fit into her products. It should be the other way around. And so we are very mission oriented as a company. And we also care so much about the end of life of our products as well. And that's where our partnership with Soles4Souls comes in. We fundamentally believe that no product should end up in landfill in its end of life. So I've been at ThirdLove for about 2 years, and I oversee all the movement of our inventory and orders. Prior to that, I co-founded and was the CEO of a robotics company for 6 years, and we designed a line of programmable robots that taught kids and adults STEM. And then prior to that, I started out my career in management consulting at the Bridgespan Group, focusing on the nonprofit sector and government.
Oh, wow. I don't think I knew all of that about you, Connie. That's amazing. Connie, I'm so excited because, some of the conversations that ThirdLove and Soles4Souls have really been around these sustainable development goals, and 3 in particular, which is, the first one is poverty alleviation. Together, we're really trying to tackle sustainable development goal 1. But specifically with ThirdLove and Soles4Souls, SDG 5, which is gender equality, and making sure that these women entrepreneurs that we're supporting and these women that are receiving your product can really have long-term sustainable living wages, really create opportunity for them in the long term. And finally, and you touched on it in your presentation, is we're ultimately keeping product out of the landfills and supporting the Save the Planet, right, which is the SDG 12. And so as we together work on these 3 initiatives, it's really such a powerhouse relationship. And I'd love if you could share really how we started and where we are now.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when we started thinking about expanding our donations program, we were actually faced, it was about a 6-month journey for us to figure out how we can expand our reach. So when I started at ThirdLove 2 years ago, we had already had a robust domestic donations program in place, and we had some amazing partnerships already. One of the challenges, though, that we faced as a brand on the logistics side is as we grew in volume, we needed to find even more partnerships that could be able to receive, for example, truckloads a month is sort of the volume that we were looking at. And that presents itself a whole other challenge. So when I started, one of the key projects that I led with my team was we did about a 6-month search. We looked at probably over 50 different nonprofit organizations, interviewed so many. And a couple of the things that we were looking for is, one, an organization that fundamentally believed in what we believed. So we were aligned around the mission of gender equality, and we fundamentally believed in making women feel more comfortable. And 2, finding a nonprofit that had the capacity logistically to be able to receive that quantity of product.
Mhm.
And third, a nonprofit that had the skills and capabilities to ensure that those products would end up to women directly. And it was actually quite eye-opening for us that it was so challenging. And when we first heard about Soles4Souls and I first found out about you guys, I was just so excited because it was very clear that you guys would be able to have that capability and expertise. So I think it was a really fast partnership once we started speaking to each other. And since then, you guys have been one of our strongest donation partners. You've helped us expand our social impact reach globally. We are so thrilled about that. And it's been wonderful for the last few years.
Well, we're super grateful, and it's such an amazing relationship. And I think one of the most important things in being able to support the SDG goals and really just being able to help people around the globe is organizations coming together, whether it's not for profit, whether it's a for profit or government. Really, it has to be multilateral, right? It has to be across the board. Everybody has to work together. One of the interesting things that we've seen is through our partnership and really through your leadership at ThirdLove is this idea of innovation and innovating in these areas. And for you, you saw a need, and so you searched out this nonprofit or these nonprofits to really be able to help with those needs. As you think about other organizations or even other brands, what would you recommend, and how would they approach really being supportive of these SDG goals and helping, whether it's through the gender equality or poverty alleviation, or even keeping their product out of the landfill?
Absolutely. I think that just speaking with some other brands who were doing a similar search like ThirdLove was during that time, I think some of the differences that we had was we believed that this program could have a life of its own. It wasn't just we were trying to find an end-of-life clearance channel. I think sometimes when brands think about this part of the supply chain, it can be a little bit divorced from the potential impact that it could have. And it does take a lot of effort actually to find a place for that product to have a home. So what I would recommend is ideally, if you have someone who particularly has a background or a passion for social impact, that can make a huge difference. But if not, I think just changing your mindset about that. One of the things that attracted me to ThirdLove in the first place and this particular role was actually the donations program. And that goes all the way back to the beginning of my career when I started working at the Bridgeband Group, which is a nonprofit consultancy. So I was already really passionate about SDGs. I had spent years working in STEM and gender equality issues. So I already had a quote unquote bias towards that type of action anyway. So it ended up being a perfect fit. But if you don't have that on your team, I think just changing the mindset. And, with a little bit of effort, I think that you can definitely find organizations that you can partner with and share your values.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. And, I think it's the same even within the nonprofit. We often say that at Soles4Souls, we inadvertently got into sustainability, right? Because we were helping people and giving away shoes and clothing, supporting during times of disaster relief, whether just times of need, even for the empowerment of these women. We didn't realize until a few years in, we were actually keeping these products out of the landfill. And then we started going, oh, light bulb. Okay, we have to track this and see how we're helping folks. I think, one of my favorite really moments with ThirdLove is when we realized who we were helping ultimately, right? When we had, and I think it was you and I that had a conversation about the journey of your product, right? So it starts from creation all the way, or ideation all the way to actually creating the product, and ultimately the second life that it receives. In the case of most of ThirdLove's product, it's particularly going to a group that has thrift shops that does two things. One, it really is creating opportunity for orphanages. So all of the funding from those thrift shops are going back to the funding. But the women that are employed in the thrift shops are women who were formerly trafficked. And so it's such a, it's heart-wrenching to know that this is still happening and it's such an issue. but that this brand is supporting these women and supporting these opportunities long term. And I think that's such a huge and important part of the relationship and the partnership.
Absolutely. And I remember that very first donation that we had made with you guys to Heart for Orphans. And I remember the pictures that you guys sent back about some of the programs. And we actually shared that with the whole company. And it gave me chills personally, just
Absolutely.
that. And I know that Heidi and Dave in particular were just so excited about being able to do that. So, yeah.
I think yours is a unique brand, as many might not necessarily have domestic and global. And I think, what's interesting about the partnership is that we're able to support both locally in domestic communities in the United States, but really across the world. So Soles4Souls is fortunate enough to be able to help in almost every country across the globe. We have regional distribution centers across the world. So Singapore, the Netherlands, Toronto, Canada, and of course here in the United States. When you look at ThirdLove and your operations, and if you have suggestions for people who have either just domestic or global operations, where do they start to focus? Is it really in their localized community, or do they look at trying to help all over the world? I mean, not everybody can tackle everything, but how can we start to support these goals?
Absolutely. I think that there's really no limit, especially with some of the brands similar to ThirdLove or some of our peers, where the goal that we have is truly global. There's no borders, there's no boundaries in that way. So I actually think we should work backwards from where do we think we can have the largest impact today? And I think that's through the conduit of these types of partnerships. And so I think it's just really important to make sure that you have a program and a delivery mechanism in place and working backwards from that. And then over time, it will just naturally grow itself.
Absolutely. One of the things that's amazing to me is over your personal and professional journey so far, you have, really had a robust background and such an interesting evolution to how you ended up at ThirdLove. There were obviously many challenges that you faced along the way, and challenges specifically at trying to support sustainable development goals. Can you talk through maybe one challenge that particularly stands out to you and how you overcame it?
Yeah, I will talk a little bit about when I was running my own company, actually, because I think that entrepreneurship is key to be able to solve so many of the SDGs. And when I was running my own business for 6 years in robotics, I think that one of the challenges we faced was exactly on the logistics and supply chain side. We had to figure out how to scale up manufacturing really quickly. We had started on Kickstarter. We had a $13,000 goal. We ended up raising that on the first day. And over the course of the campaign, we raised about 200,000. So it was just so much more than what we had expected. And I think one of the challenges was at some point we knew we had to move to Shenzhen to work on logistics and supply chain, and getting that right is so key. So I think just early on in my career, I learned that it's not just the strategy side that you have to get right and to understand your goals, but it's also how will you operationalize those plans. And I really carry that with me in everything that I do. And that's why I was so excited about what ThirdLove was doing, because it's very complex logistically to be able to try to accomplish our mission as well.
Yeah, that's such a great challenge, and one that I think almost every industry faces, right? Is logistics, supply chain, how to move things around. Even in the nonprofit space, for us, as getting product. Receiving product is probably the easiest part. It's actually getting it to the end need that's the most difficult, and that's part of the collaborative effort of government and other organizations working together, is really to be able to support. We haven't touched through this conversation yet on COVID and just all the disasters that are happening around the world right now. how does ThirdLove respond to that? Obviously for us as Soles4Souls, that is the base of our mission, and so that's what we're doing all the time is responding. I talk to many nonprofits, and we talk about the COVID situation, and we don't know if we call it a disaster still, or is it just now, the new norm that we have to adjust to. And so how does ThirdLove see this, and where is your response in terms of disasters and or COVID, even for your own folks or people that you're helping around the world?
Of course, yeah. So I think that, we have been, as a local office in San Francisco and also in Chico, we've been working from home for months. And so I think one of the first priorities that we as a brand took is we need to make sure that we take care of our own people. And so we made that call fairly early on, and we've made it work, and it's actually been really great. But not great in terms of the pandemic, of course.
Sure, of course.
From home, I think that transition ended up being so much more seamless than perhaps we had thought, because I think we already had the culture of collaboration. So we're slacking all day long. We were so used to that. We were already having so many meetings, and we just transitioned that into virtual one-on-one. So I think as a brand internally, that ended up being a really natural leap. And since then, we've put a lot of different things in place to make sure that we still stay connected. So, personally in our team, we're meeting more frequently than we did before. As a company, we have virtual happy hours really frequently. We celebrate our teammates' successes virtually as well. One of our key leaders is about to go on maternity leave, and we threw a virtual baby shower for her. So I think that, as a brand, that was the first thing that we wanted to do, is how do we keep our team and our culture intact and make sure that everyone stays safe. And then in terms of our response, we also worked very closely with different organizations locally in San Francisco to be able to donate PPE. Yeah.
That's fantastic. The need continues to be greater and greater now, not just in the wake of COVID, but with disasters around the world. And we're getting, of course, more and more requests and need out there. As you know, as COVID has really changed the landscape for most retailers, and the disasters surrounding COVID and just natural disasters around the world, one of the things that we're seeing is this acceleration in giving and in wanting to help with the SDGs, with the Sustainable Development Goals. Prior to COVID and prior to really all these disasters happening around the world, we'd seen so many companies really starting to shift, really starting to have a focus, this idea of purpose above profitability, or really creating additional shareholder value and more shareholder value through purpose. And so as we look at the landscape now, COVID has really accelerated that mindset and that mind shift. And so as you look at the landscape of retailers, whether competitive or collaborative, are you seeing that same shift, and where do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, and absolutely we are. So I think that it on both a competitive and collaborative angle, brands that were already oriented towards a strong mission, so their team and their brand already cared about this. I think we're seeing people spring into action because there's just a sense of wanting to help in any kind of way. And so Allbirds actually, I understand, is also a partner of you guys with Soles4Souls.
Yes.
Yeah, they kicked off a global innovation initiative, and ThirdLove participated in it, where we got together in different roundtable discussions with Allbirds and other brands to talk about what it is that we are doing and how can we as a group respond or partner together. And we were able to share a lot of different learnings and insights with each other about what it is that we're each doing. So I think that there's definitely brands that are naturally springing into action, and I would hope, and I see this already, but I definitely think that there'll be more of a focus from other brands who may not have been directly involved in these types of initiatives before.
That's phenomenal. We're seeing the same even on the nonprofit side. We've seen a tremendous amount of collaboration as we really try to unify, and we're all ultimately trying to create the same end goal, which is helping humanity. And so we're seeing a lot of that, which is phenomenal. On your side, as you talked about these innovation practices, and Allbirds leading this innovation roundtables, what are some of the innovative ways that you guys are looking at, or what is going to be different in how you approach some of these areas in this agenda?
Yeah, so I think that for us, luckily, I think both of us already worked with Soles4Souls. But I do think that if there are other brands who were facing the same problems that we were before, and their products, they're having a hard time figuring out what that end of life program would be, I think just being part of this forum and hearing what other brands are doing with that will help tremendously. And that could unlock, because I will say for us, when we found you guys and a few other partnerships that we launched around the same time, it truly unlocked our program. So I think that's the first step, is just, the issues that we faced are really common for brands who are D2C, who sell physical goods and are trying to find end of life. So I think that's probably one of the strongest ways that we can partner together.
That's fantastic. And I will round out this conversation and ask one last question, which is, what is your post-summit ask for the global audience that's listening today as we continue to make these changes around the world?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that I would like everyone to remember we're all part of a movement, and it doesn't matter what sector we're working in. It doesn't matter what issue. It doesn't matter what company at this point, because I hope that we're all working for the same goals. And there's so much that we can do in just our daily roles, daily jobs, that we can make small impacts to the larger SDG. So I would just encourage everyone to think about how can they, as a leader on a daily basis, lift all tides around them.
That's fantastic. I would agree 100%. For us at Soles4Souls, we're looking for more brands like ThirdLove, who are so innovative and so much wanting to help humanity and help people around the world. And for us, we're happy to be there to partner and help support and lift everyone together as well. Thank you so much, Connie. This has been an amazing conversation.
Thank you, Nancy. It's been great.